Hi there. Welcome to the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. My name is Todd Rhoades, one of the co-founders over at chemistrystatic.com and your host right here on the podcast. And today is day 2 in a 10-part series that we're doing here on the podcast to unpack our top 10 discoveries that we just released yesterday from our church staff health assessment. Here's the rundown. Over the last 3 years, over 3,400 church staff members across the country have taken this assessment, 50 questions. So these aren't guesses. These are actually trends that are backed by real data, by people just like you that took the assessment. And today we're going to look at discovery number 2, which I think is probably one of the most actionable findings in the entire report. All right, so here we go. The newest staff members are your healthiest. Let me repeat that. That's discovery number 2. Your newest staff members are your healthiest. Year 1 overall health scores came in for church staff in their first year of tenure, about 193. Flight risk, only about 32%. Sounds like good news until you see what happens next. So in years 3 to 5, that score of 193 drops 17 points. And the flight risk goes from 32% up to 59%. Now, what is flight risk? Flight risk is how we describe the potential that someone will leave your church staff. And it goes up to almost 60% in years 3 through 5. And that's the cruel irony of that is that's exactly when you need those people to stick around because that's when they're the most valuable to you. Okay, so let me unpack insight number 1. There's a predictable life cycle that nobody is talking about. And here's what it is. And if you've been in ministry, you've experienced this, right? Chances are you have, roughly. Year 1 is the honeymoon, right? Everything's fresh, everything's new. You as a staff member, you get the benefit of the doubt, and things are going really well. Your flight risk, by the time the first year is over, whether or not you feel like this is going to be the place where you're going to be, about 1 in 3, 32% is a flight risk. Years 2 to 3, it goes up to about 44%. And year 1 and 2, after that first honeymoon period, is the time of adjustment, right? The reality sets in. You get your first budget disappointment. You fight the we've always done it this way crowd. So that is year 1 to 2. And then year 3 to 5, which is what we're talking about. That's what we're calling the wall. That's the crisis point. 59%. It goes up from 44% flight risk up to about 59%. Nearly 6 in 10 staff members during years 3 to 5 tell us that they have been thinking about leaving. And then in year 6 to 10, the recovery begins if you last that long, if they survive. And years 16 to 20, that's really where you get all the joy that they had back in year 1. It takes, literally sometimes 10, 15 years to get that honeymoon period back. So the question really shifts from how do I succeed here to should I even be here? And let's talk about why this wall happens, okay? A lot of times it's because by the time you get to year 3, 4, year 5, you have these kind of frustrations, these accumulated frustrations. And all of a sudden, it might have been 1 or 2 becomes 3 or 4 or 8 or 10 or whatever. And those accumulated frustrations start to hit that critical mass. In year 1, dysfunction is just a minor irritation. But by year 4, sometimes it can get to be a pattern. And those unmet expectations crystallize into resentment. Remember what they promised you that they were going to do in the interview? Year 3, 4, and 5, you're like, I'm not sure if that's really true or not. So what does this mean for churches, particularly if you're a pastor, an executive pastor, and you're leading your staff? Here's what it means. You're at risk of losing people at year 3 to 5, which is, again, put it in business terms, the maximum return on investment, right? You've invested in your staff, you've built into them, you made them feel at home for the first 3 years, year 3, 4, and 5. If they're thinking about leaving, that's when they know you. That's when they know your church. That's where hopefully they're starting to fit in and that rhythm and cycles are starting to go. So just think for a second what a year 4 staff member brings. They know your culture. Hopefully they've built trust with your people. They've learned from some of those early mistakes, hopefully, and they carry some of that institutional knowledge that if you go out and hire somebody brand new, it's going to take them another 3 years to get that. They're finally operating at full capacity. And statistically, nearly 60% are considering doing something else. You invested years developing them, and you're losing them right when it starts to pay off. Here's the insight number 4 I want to give you on this one, this discovery today. The survivors, those that make it through years 3, 4, and 5, those become your best people. They just do. And that's the hope that's really buried in the data as we looked at it this year. The staff who break through that wall don't just stabilize, they recover. And if they last there for 10, 15, 16, 20 years, their scores start to skyrocket, almost identical to that honeymoon, that first year period. And the flight risk drops to below 50%, lowest of any tenure band after year 1. And if you can help them break through that 3 to 5 year wall instead of burning out, they can become your healthiest and your most committed team members. The goal just isn't retention. It's getting them onto the other side so that they can be long-term, not only healthy staff members for your church, but that they can be individually and their families can be long-term healthy in their situation. All right, so here's the bottom line for today. That 3 to 5 year window is where you win or you lose your best people. Not your newest hire, not your veterans, the ones in the middle. Been there, who've seen behind the curtain, who haven't fully committed to staying at the 3, 4, and 5 year period. And they're trying to figure out if they're going to stay or if they're going to leave. So what should you do? What should you do? If you're in charge of a staff and you've got multiple people that are in that 3, 4, 5 year stage, first thing is just identify them, right? If you've got a large enough staff, you need to identify every staff member that's currently in year 3, year 4, year 5, write down their names and schedule a conversation with them, not about performance, but about their experience, and ask them, hey, what frustration have you mentioned multiple times that's still unresolved? In other words, what have you mentioned, or maybe some things that you haven't mentioned that are frustrating to you that you had hoped we would have fixed by now, but we haven't? And then here's the action step. This one might hurt a little bit. Fix something. One little thing. Show them that change is possible right here at your church. Okay. So this is discovery number 2. We've got 10 that we're going to go through in the next 4 days left in our series. This is just one of 10 discoveries from our church staff health assessment. And we've compiled all of these discoveries, including all of this data, into a free 200-page report. That's right. It's 200 pages. If you're a church data geek, you're going to love this. All the data, all the trends, all the practical insights. It's available for you to download right now for free at churchstaffhealth.com. And also this year, just an exciting note, if you're interested, we also have added some individualized reports. So if you took the assessment and want to see specifically how you do compared to everybody else that took the assessment this year, there's a report there available that you can purchase. And then if you're in charge of your staff, maybe you're the senior pastor or the executive pastor, and you're like, this is really helpful information, but I wonder how our staff compare nationally. There's a church-wide report that you can check out all the information on that as well at churchstaffhealth.com. Remember, this is the discovery for today. The staff in years 3 to 5 are your biggest risk, but they're also your biggest opportunity. I'd love to hear any feedback you have. Download the free report. I'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, positive, negative, constructive criticism. I'd love it. And you can reach out to me anytime. Podcast at chemistrystaffing.com. All right, that's it for today. Hope you'll join me again tomorrow. We'll have discovery number 3. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have to come back and listen tomorrow.